Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and on this episode, we'll be talking about heading into the season of the witch. All things witchy and spooky and ghouly and ghosty. We love it. This is one of my favorite times of year. The colors are coloring. People are decorating their houses for the season. There's pumpkins and gourds, and I just absolutely love fall season and heading towards Samhain, the third harvest.
Okay, this is Chelle here. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you, but I have to interject. I love this season, but in Salem, Massachusetts, it's getting a little peoply.
It is.
Peoply.
This is the time of year I want to kidnap you and take you out to my house and save you from all of the crowds that are there.
Seriously, and this is the time of year where I just want to be like, Layla, don't let me go home. Salem is great, but folks, it's a little peoply. But anyway, welcome, because 'tis the season to be witches. Fa la 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 la.
It really is, and I love it. This is when all my home decor goes on sale.
Right?
All my favorite things, from Home Goods, where they have amazing little cauldrons. Oh my goodness, I love it all.
Why are you lying to people? You decorate your home from Spirit Halloween, and now let's be real. Come on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Everything I love to decorate my house with is now suddenly on sale. It's so weird. But I did also do a little bit of shopping recently, because this time of year is also Pagan Pride season, and we were just at the Central New York Pagan Pride.
We were, and just one last comment about shopping. If you have not checked out our socials, go look at a post I put out a few days back. I was shopping in Layla's yard, and A, the most therapeutic thing I've done in weeks, and B, sometimes I think folks forget that you have an herbal cabinet right in your own space. And I mean, I'm not just talking you personally, I'm people in general. I will include big city livers too, because there is greenery to be had in cities, even New York City. But shopping in your yard was better than any mall ever.
You really don't need a special fancy protection oil or incense. You can grab things right out of your kitchen, right out of your yard, right out of your garden that will work even better for you.
Actually, I kind of prefer, I don't want to say I feel like there's more quote unquote magic in it, but there's something different about something that you have gone and kind of foraged on your own versus stopping at a store on your way home or going to Amazon.
We talk a lot about intention. What we really mean is putting energy towards something. And if you're searching your house looking for a piece of paper that looks cool enough to write a little witchy spell on, that's energy, that's intention, that's power that you've put towards the spell just by looking for that paper. Even if, like one of our listeners, you just find some fancy wrapping paper and use that for your spell, that's freaking perfect. I love it. And that adds much more energy to the spell for you.
But before we get into all that jazzy jazz, you and I spent we'll call it an abbreviated weekend together. I want to talk about what we did and tell our listeners where we were and what we were doing and who we saw and who we met.
I am still blown away. I am absolutely still in awe over our weekend. You and I were supposed to have more time together, and through a series of events, unfortunately, we did not. But you did make it here on your
11th hour, man. 11th hour.
The witching hour, literally, the night before, and we drove together to CNY. This is up in Liverpool, New York, near Syracuse, New York. It's the Central New York Pagan Pride, and they've been doing this for a little while now. They have quite a few other events. This is a big deal.
No shit. I had no idea. Wouldn't you say like 2000 easy?
Oh, easy, easily. There were so many vendors and so many performers and workshops. There was a drum circle and a
I just
ritual.
loved that I was somewhere where there was so many pagan folkies.
Yes, you were surprised coming from witch capital Salem, Massachusetts. Massachusetts. I know you didn't quite expect the crowd that we had there,
I
but
didn't.
it's a beautiful park, and everybody that was part of this was fantastic. And I walked in, and within seconds of stepping into this space, we met the most lovely couple and their foster baby who happened to be fans of Back on the Broomstick.
And I hope they're listening, by the way, because you and I literally, I think you actually had tears streaming down your cheek. I mean,
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I was
like,
a little shell shocked. Yeah, I was so surprised. I
like
miss
I just the love that we got was we love you guys just as much as you love us. So know
it
that.
was so nice. I was so glad that they took the initiative to come over and say, "Hi, are you Chelle and Layla?" and give us hugs and say hi and introduce us to their baby. And
Which, by the way, cutest baby ever.
oh, she looks like a little doll. And it was just really nice to connect with some fans. And it didn't stop there.
Now, we have a couple special shout outs, and I want to start this off. Angela, you know who you are. You're listening. I had driven 8 billion hours and got a little bit of sleep, and I accidentally called you by a wrong name, and I am an asshole for that, and I'm sorry. Angela, I love you. And Layla, what did Angela give us?
I, again, blown away by everything that Saturday. She had two gifts for us, beautiful prints that she had gotten from another artist, I believe, that did a tarot deck. And she brought those special for us. That was the sweetest.
And I remember this whole thing started when we did an episode on fake tarot decks.
Mhm.
And she had realized she had gotten a fake tarot deck and realized she was able to go get one, met the author, and was gifted these. And I have it right here above my little screen where we're doing this.
Yeah, I have mine right here in the office. It's great.
I just want her to know that we love it so much. And thank you, Angela.
I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but future Layla will pop in here and let y'all know who that is. But great prints, stunning. I love them. Hey witches, future Layla here. The artist is Elizabeth Alba, and the print is Meditation for Clarity, which is a card from the Everyday Witch Oracle that they created in conjunction with author Deborah Blake. And honestly, I really want this deck. Thank you so much for the print, Angela. I absolutely love it. And also thank you for supporting the artist and the author of this deck once you realized you had a counterfeit. For that, a huge thank you. Future Layla out.
For our next shout out, I
Whew.
cried. I cried, Layla. I cried. So we're gonna make this person cry because I know the shout out will make this person just go off the wall.
I hope so because they, among everyone else, definitely made this weekend special.
So
Silvio.
Silvio, you're out there. And I know, Silvio, you're sitting there saying, "Oh my God, they're talking to me." Yes, we are talking to you, Silvio. First of all, your artistic talent. Like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't paint my way out of a paper bag. And the talent and the time and the effort. You know what really blew me away?
What's that?
When Silvio said that they felt like they needed to bring us an offering.
I
Who the hell am I?
know.
Who the hell are you? Silvio, like, we love you. Deep love. This is gorgeous. What we got. Silvio took a oval-shaped wooden canvas and painted us not only broomsticks, matching broomsticks, mind you, and didn't just whip off any old broomstick painting here, mind you. Silvio has listened to us and has paid attention to our weirdness and happened to know that I love green and you love purple. My broomstick has green bristles, your broomstick has purple bristles,
hmm
and they are each behind a crescent moon. Here's the thing. Are crescent moons, when you put them together facing each other, like,
It's perfect. It's perfect, Silvio. Thank you so much.
I don't even have words.
You know, when I first saw these prints, it reminded me of Lara Tempest Zakroff's work, and I just absolutely love everything that they do. So I was beyond honored, and I'm thrilled. The broom that you painted for me is right here next to my Nybor paintings. It's on my altar, and I just love it. It's right where I can look at it every day and just be reminded how much you guys all mean to us. So thank you, Silvio. I really appreciate
And,
that.
and, and I'm actually, before Layla and I had to part ways, I actually took pictures of each of our gifts together, and I am going to post them.
And I am so sorry I don't remember everyone's name that came up to say hello to us. It was kind of a whirlwind day, and I'm a little bit of an introvert, but thank you so, so much to Alan, to Angelina, to Gloria, and to Stefan, to Raven and Carla, Todd, Judy, Andrea, Deanna, Ryan, Michael, all of you, everyone whose name I forgot. Again, I'm so, so sorry, but thank you all so much for making it such a wonderful, wonderful day.
Even if you didn't come up and say hi to us, if you were there, we appreciate you coming. We appreciate you sitting through our workshops, and we love you guys. It was such a
Yeah.
weekend of love. And I had told a couple of listeners this. I had a super shitty week before I went
Mm-hmm.
there. And it was you guys showing up with all that love that I was like, life is great.
It really is. It really is. So thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for real. That was really nice. We also, as a little treat for you guys this week, have been working on, actually been working on this for a little while, but a reading of a writing by someone from our old pagan community.
Now, this is one of those, I wouldn't call it a poem. I guess, like, yeah, writing, I guess is a good way to describe it. This can shake you to your core. I heard this for the very first time, was it 91, 1992? And it speaks to your soul, but in such a way where you want to be empowered and cry all at the same time.
Yeah. And what we're talking about is Never Again the Burning by Gail Perigo Hamby. And I also have a special connection to this piece. A long time ago, I lived in a place called Schenectady, New York. And I was a young witch that didn't know anybody who was a witch. It was in the early 90s.
That's because you hadn't met me yet.
I hadn't met you yet. I was working at a thrift store and a big, huge stack of old green egg magazines came
Oh my
in.
God, green egg.
Yeah, and I ended up buying all of them. The funny thing with that is they were marked like $3 each, and there was a good 20 of them there. So I went home to get more money. When I came back to buy the stack, the person that was there was like, "Oh, $3 each? That's ridiculous. You can have the whole stack for $3." So so I was so happy, but as I read through these magazines, in one of them was a poem called Never Again the Burning by Gail. It dropped me. I mean, I didn't even hear it spoken like you did, but it really hit me hard. I cried. I've loved it ever since. Well, then when I moved to the southern tier of New York, I happened to mention this writing to my newfound pagan friends, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, we know that. We know Gail."
That's her over there.
Well, not quite. They're like, "We know Gail." And yeah, she's part of this community. So a few days later, I'm at the mall at a Barnes and Noble waiting in line. The cashier happens to be a woman with pagan necklaces and rings, and her name tag says Gail. Then someone comes up to her and says, "Hey, Gail, Otter's on the phone for you." Now, Otter was one of the people from Green Egg magazine. So my brain put two and two together. It was the wrong Otter, by the way. Put two and two together and was like, this has to be Gail that wrote Never Again the Burning.
Which
So
it
when I
was.
got up, and it really was. And then I got to see her repeatedly and do ritual with her, work magic with her. When I was May Queen, she gave me one of the most amazing magical, energetic gifts. And she has just always been one of my idols. I'm going to cry right now because she has listened to our current rendition and loves it. She likes it even better than the one that she did. And to hear that from one of my witchy idols is
I
just
can't
blowing me
even,
away.
I
Yeah.
can't even, when I was first exposed to it, I was exposed to it and like kind of the exact opposite way. I was at one of our old community rituals and she spoke it.
Wow.
And then I was like, what is that? And then she was selling the poem on cassette tapes, and I
Hmm.
bought the cassette tape. And God, I wish I could put hands on that right now. I actually might have it in my storage
You've
unit.
said that before, and you better
Yeah.
go look for that woman.
But this is one of the best pieces of work witchcraft related, in my opinion, period.
It's really a call to action, and we need that right now. You know, you can't have religious intolerance, injustice. You can't
Right.
have blind hatred and ignorance calling the shots. I mean, there's too much going on in the world right now to not call attention to it, to not try and call it out. I mean, witches are in danger, women are in danger, people of color are in danger, immigrants are in danger, LGBTQ people are in danger. It's scary. It's a scary time. You know, we need to take care of each other, and that's really what this work is about. Is and I know that the people that were killed, most of them, especially here in the US, were not witches. They were regular old people.
Nor were they necessarily burned, but it's more about the
Right.
sentiment and not the literal context.
You know, in other countries, there were people that were burned,
Right,
and some of them probably were hedge witches, but most of them were just persecuted people. And
right.
we can't have that. So I think it's very timely that we put it out.
Not to mention, that is something that I always kind of go back to this time of year. I don't know why.
It stirs like almost like a memory.
Yeah,
A lot of people that hear that, it stirs almost a past life kind of memory. You know, maybe,
yeah.
again, maybe you weren't necessarily a witch being burned at the stake, but maybe you were a persecuted person in a past life. And it really is, it's stirring. Go listen if you haven't listened yet.
It's freaking fabulous.
But yeah, it does bring me into this time of year, this introspective, dark kind of Samhain time of year. And we're headed towards that harvest.
Yeah, I mean, we are walking up to that last harvest, kind of last call,
Hmm.
the final things that can be reaped from what you've sown.
Literally and figuratively. Like you said, you went shopping in my yard. And the reason you could do that is because I live on the top of a mountain in farm country, in the middle of the woods. And I see that on a daily basis. I see people out there, you know, they're getting the last few big harvests out of the fields, but things are dying. You know, the tomato plants are pretty much dead, and you can just grab the last few. And there's a lot of gourds and everything.
Leaves are changing and falling.
Yeah, and that's really what Samhain is about, is death. Things are dying and getting ready to go inside and underground for the winter. At least here.
There's a big thing with this being kind of like an ancestor work time, a spirit work time.
Very much so, yeah. It's a liminal space. Beltane and Samhain are both what we call liminal spaces, spaces between, like between this world and the next, when the veil between us and our beloved dead is thinner.
But I've been seeing an argument pop up over the last year or so, and it seems to be a hot topic this time of year, rightfully so.
Ooh, what is it?
That veil is always thin. We only
Mm.
focus on it these two times of year.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's something to be said for that. It's almost like you only think about things when they're relevant.
Sure.
So this would be the time where you'd think it'd be the thinnest.
Okay, I think we're going to be on opposite sides of this. So tell me what the argument is for being thin all the time, because I'm very curious.
Okay, so you practice psychic mediumship.
It's not my thing, but I've done it. Yeah.
But okay, so how come you can be a psychic medium in July if the veil's not thin?
Just because it's not thin doesn't mean you can't talk to them. I could talk to my friend in the other room through a wall, but I can talk to them easier through a door.
You're so logical.
My opinion is that, yes, I talk to my ancestors all year round. I talk to my beloved dead probably more often than I should. I've told you before, my grandmother doesn't like to be quiet.
Is it easier this time of year, do you feel?
Yes, I do. I do feel that. I do very much feel that. And could that be because so many people, like you said, are paying attention to that? It could. That much energy focused on that type of idea puts power to it. So that puts strength to it. However, I feel that the veil is thinnest on Beltane and Samhain because those are the cruxes, those are the culmination of life and death. And those are the liminal spaces, being born and dying. Those are the two times when you are closest to that veil.
Okay, I get you on this. I do. I agree with that completely. And I wasn't thinking of it that way. I was more thinking of it as a talking through the wall or through the doorway kind of thing.
That's how I see it. I mean, you can talk through the wall. You know, it's just harder. If you have a phone, you can make it easier. So some people can talk to them easier than others, you know, depending on your abilities, what tools you use, how often you talk to them. But I do feel that this time of year is literally things are dying. No matter where you live in the United States, your seasons are going through a change right now. Things are changing, and you can see that. And the Celts that started this festival, they could see that. They knew that this was the dying part of the year. People were more likely to die in the wintertime.
Right.
Babies were more likely to not make it in the wintertime. We don't have those pressures, but we can see the trees and the fields and the farms, going quiet. Nature itself is going
Going
towards
dormant.
death,
Yeah, it's
going
going
dormant.
into that dormant stage.
And in the southern half of the world, it's Beltane. Things are growing, birthing, going through that birthing tunnel. They're coming out into the world and coming up from the dark. Again, a liminal space. Those two times, birth and death. And that's happening right now on both the northern and the southern hemispheres. That's fucking powerful. So yeah, I do feel that it is more thin this time of year, and for reasons.
Okay, so you're swaying me in your direction. I was led astray by the old internety.
I'm interested in that. I do see where people would think that I'm not trying to say that that's totally wrong.
But I'm starting to think that maybe they weren't taking into consideration your exact point, and maybe they were just thinking of it more on a communication level, which again, you made a good point with the whole door and wall thing. But
Yeah.
some people just think that that veil is just as thin 24/7, 365.
And those might be the people that have a really good connection with their dead or with all the dead. There are some
There are
people
levels of sensitivity.
so maybe those are just super sensitive people. I don't know.
It could be. Just thought since it was a good thing to get our opinions on. But one of the traditions of Samhain that I kind of like the most is the ancestor. I guess this is kind of not that we don't have ancestor altars going on the regular or that we don't do that type of work, but this is almost like preset on your calendar to do ancestor work. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah. And because, like you said, it looks like ancestry time, everything's going sepia toned, everything's dying and going within. So it
It's
makes
looking very
sense.
cemetery-like.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it. I like that. So yeah, working with ancestors is huge this time of year.
And, how you view who and what your ancestors are is absolutely a personal thing.
Hmm.
You could be working with the energies of people you are genetically related to 8, 10 generations back, or you could be working with an ancestor that's, say, your grandparent or your parent.
You could be working with an author who was married to a rock star because
Right.
she decided she wanted to. And they don't have to be related to you. You don't have to know who your relatives are. There are all sorts of ways that spirit and
I look at
ancestors.
ancestors as people who have passed on before me. It doesn't have to be a DNA link.
That's right. Just like people in your life right now, some of them are chosen families.
Right.
Sometimes spirit will choose you for all sorts of reasons, bloodline be damned.
Well, you are my sister from another mister, so
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You're stuck with me. Whichever one of us goes first is going to have to deal with the other one in spirit form. That's all there is to
pretty much.
it.
I think this is a time where maybe it's on people's minds more.
It's on mine.
I know for me personally, it's a little bit easier because two people that I do a lot of ancestor work with, my grandparents, one died in September and one died a few days before Samhain. So it's almost like more like I feel like doing that type of stuff, connecting with them now because it's also, I don't want to see like a death anniversary, but kinda.
Yeah. Yeah. That does make sense. I mean,
This is the
anniversaries.
time of year when I lost them, September,
Yeah.
October. So it makes sense for me to have that come to mind this time of year.
In preparation for recording this, I was listening to our last year's Samhain episode, and man, I was depressed. I was sad.
I remember after that, we were both like, man, we're depressing Nellies here.
I actually got some emails. We were like, I didn't like that episode. You talked too much about your feelings. I'm like, well, I was sad, man. Sometimes it happens.
But that's part of the ancestor work and the shadow
Yeah.
work and the going within is dealing with that. And it's easy to avoid your inner bullshit on a hot sunny day as opposed to curled up on your couch, cuddling with your blanket and your cat, and all that floods to you.
when it's gray and rainy and the leaves are falling and you're snuggled inside, that's when your brain is going to start reminding you, oh, yeah, your beloved grandmother passed away last year, and you start thinking about
Right.
that. But yeah, it's more in your face now. Last year, when I was sad, I found a lot of comfort in doing the rituals.
Don't say journal. Don't say journaling. Don't
No.
say journaling.
I won't say it yet. But no, it was mostly the my favorite parts of Samhain, decorating for the season, getting out all the fall things, putting up more candles. I really enjoyed clearing off and resetting my ancestor altar. And as hard as it was, I've talked about this before, but one of my rituals I stole from one of our pagan community members was I have a very large black plate, big, huge circular black plate. And around it, I have started writing in sparkly markers, gold and silver, but I've started writing people's names that have passed on in a spiral around this plate. And I use that, especially this time of year, to remind me of my beloved dead, of those that have been in my life that touched me, that have passed on. So I put their names on there. And so adding names and looking at the names that are there and redoing my altar gave me a lot of comfort.
Now, just real quick, I don't want to go in depth because we are kind of running out of time here, but I want you to tell them, I know what you do with it, the plate. So you do the dinner for the dead. What's that
Yes,
called?
the silent supper, or some
That's
people
what it
call it
is.
a
Sorry.
dumb supper or a silent supper. I like to do that as well. I'm actually going to do it starting October 1st this year, but I will usually set a place with really fancy place settings at my table and I'll leave it there. And the reason you do that is to invite your beloved dead into your home. It's basically setting a place for them at your table. And you can just do it at a meal, or you, like me, you can set it for the entire month if you wanted to. But this is a tradition that did come from the Irish, from the Celts. The idea was at this time of year, your dead are more likely to visit you, good and bad. And so you want to put things out to invite your beloved dead to you and to scare away anyone who might be trying to cause problems. And a silent supper is literally just what it sounds like. You set a place for them, you set places for everyone else, you serve food and drink to that plate for your beloved dead, and then you have an absolutely silent dinner. And the idea is to honor them. And I'll usually put that plate outside for the animals and then take it in the next day. But, that's a silent supper, and that's something that traditionally you can do for Samhain.
And then I love how you personalize it with your plate, and your plate's gorgeous.
That's something that's special. We've talked before about having ancestor altars. We like to have items from our ancestors on there, and you have quite
Right.
a few tokens from your ancestors on your
Yeah.
altar. Now, when you meditate or speak to your ancestors, do you do anything special with those? Do you like hold them? Do how do you call to your ancestors?
It depends on what ancestor I'm working with. And maybe that's a good thing I want to convey to the listeners is, how I call my grandfather and how I call my aunt are two different things because we had two different relationships. You know, with my grandfather, lifelong fireman, I will just sit there and kind of meditate with one of his fire badges. It was a badge he wore while he was in service. And but like with my aunt, it's more like just like, hey, you out there? But that was the relationship we had.
Right.
So you connect with your ancestors differently. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
If you're connecting with an ancestor that may not be maybe a blood relation or someone that you ever met in this lifetime, me personally, I'd be a little more, kind of like how I am at work. Well, hello there. Would you mind if we had a conversation? I would be a little more, I don't know if polite's the word, but like with my
Yeah.
aunt, I'd be like, hey,
A little code switching with your ancestors. Absolutely.
yeah. So, just how you deal with people face to face differently,
Yeah.
deal with, spirit differently.
When I want to talk to my father-in-law, I pack a bowl and hang out, and that's when we chill and I can feel his energy.
Yeah, or you can do the same thing with pictures if you have a photograph.
Yeah. But with my grandmother, I am not going to have cannabis involved with that.
That shit wouldn't fly. That shit wouldn't fly.
Right? So like you said, you call them differently and you'll know how that works with each one as you work with them because you journaled it. Ha ha ha. It worked it in there.
Had to, didn't you?
I did. I did. But the beginning of October is just fantastic. It's when the leaves here in the Northeast are stunningly gorgeous and everything is just speaking fall to me. The things that I do throughout the month, like carving pumpkins, or last year I carved some parsnips to kind of be a little more traditional because people used to carve turnips into scary faces to ward off evil spirits.
Which, by the way, if you're interested in Layla's carved turnips, by the way, hysterical, hysterical.
They're so cute.
Go back through our Instagram because I posted them last year and they are the cutest damn things.
But yeah, carving gourds, decorating your house. This is a great time of year to set wards at all your windows and doors. You know, keep out the bad, keep in the good. The whole trick or treat thing, right? You don't want any tricks, you just want the treats. So now's a great time to do that.
Speaking of trick or treat, I forgot I had gotten a message. Somebody asked about what do you do? Like, you know how they kind of portray that you, if you don't celebrate it on the day, you'll be damned, you know? Trust me, we've done, the holiday was on a Tuesday and we did the ritual on a Saturday. This is
Yep.
real life here, people. And I had someone say, am I allowed to celebrate Samhain the next day? I have young children. They expect to go out trick-or-treating, blah, 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 blah. Okay, people, can I just say that my coven Samhain ritual is scheduled right now for November 2nd. You're okay. You don't have
You're
to.
okay.
If you take your kids trick-or-treating, you're good. It's not a big deal.
If you want permission from history, they traditionally celebrated it on the evening of the 31st to November 1st, and their calendar was different than ours. So don't even worry about it. And some places they celebrated for 3 days and 3 nights with all sorts of great parties. So don't worry about it. On the night of the 31st, between the 31st and the 1st, if all you have time for is, hey, happy Witches New Year, then that's okay. You know, do it when you can. It's not that big of a deal.
Now, one of the folks that I honor every year happens to be my grandmother, and you remember her. She was a hoot, but Halloween was like her Christmas.
Hmm.
My grandma put Halloween above everything.
She did. Don't you have a pin of hers that was like a
It's
cauldron?
children, yes.
Yeah.
I put that on my ancestor altar for her. But my kids, every year after she died, while they trick-or-treated, which my kids trick-or-treated till 18, power to teenage trick-or-treating.
Yeah. If you come to my house and say trick or treat with a bag, you're getting candy.
My kids would set aside one piece of candy and put it on my altar, kind of not for my grandma, because obviously she wasn't, physically here to eat it. But my
Right.
kids would put a piece of candy because when they think of my grandmother, they immediately go to Halloween because that was her thing. So like they would leave out like a piece of candy. Granted, knowing my kids, it was probably a piece of candy that they hated and weren't going to eat, but it was the sentiment behind it.
You know, that made me think of food offerings. And a lot of times people ask, what do I do with food offerings? And I don't remember where I got this from, but one of the things I like to do with not all of them, but with some, like say your candy right there. What I like to do is say I have a bite-sized Snickers bar, and I'm going to put that on my altar for my grandma. What I will do is instead of saying, here, grandma, here's a bite-sized Snickers for you as an offering, I would say, I offer you the sweet taste of this Snickers. And then I would leave the Snickers on the altar for a day or two or whatever, and then I would eat it. And as I eat it, that taste, I would offer that to my ancestors. Or say you're making tea or blending an incense, you can say, I offer the aroma of this tea to my ancestors and leave the cup there. And then as you drink it and smell it, that is honoring your ancestors. So you can do that with all sorts of things. With the food, you can say, I offer the flavor of this food or the heat from this food to my ancestors, and then consume it yourself or give it to nature. And then that way you're not offering them something that they might not necessarily need. You know, the spirit would probably like the heat from that food more than they would like that piece of mashed potatoes or whatever.
I'm super basic. I would put the candy on the altar and be like, hey, Graham, here's to you. And then after a little while, I would open it and be like, here's to us. And I'd eat it.
Yep, exactly. Same thing. Same
I'm
thing.
such a candy whore. I'm sorry.
Right? Yeah, I just like to take it one little step further and say, I offer you the sweetness of this candy, or I offer you the flavor or the heat or the spices of this food or whatever, just to give them energetically something a little more appropriate. I don't
I'm
know.
just way more conversational with my spirits, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing.
Hey!
Hey, let's have some food together. You
Right?
enjoying that food and talking to them about it, I think is very magical.
But
But
I do like the whole separating Samhain ritual from Halloween thing because I like the concept of trick-or-treating with my grandson and we
mhm.
all still dress up, come on now. But it's almost like I look at it as you're going around with this mask on, almost like the mask of summer.
Ooh.
And when you are done trick-or-treating for the night, you kind of lift that mask off and are kind of like I don't want to say anew.
Shell, look at you getting all deep.
Someone does that to me. It's weird. It's weird. Why do you think our last year's episode was so depressing? This is what it does to
Right?
me. But kind of like because remember, it's also the witch's new year.
Right.
So kind of like a coming out the other side. You know what I mean? You're shedding the mask. You're kind of shedding that old skin, like how a
Right.
snake sheds its skin.
Yeah, exactly. I
I
love
don't know.
that.
Maybe I'm a weirdo.
It made me think of in last year's episode, we talked about maybe taking, how kids can take paper plates with string and you could cut out eyes and cut out a little mouth and draw a face on it.
Well, yeah.
We talked about making masks like that magically, maybe drawing sigils or drawing something on that mask that you want to get rid of, and removing it and then burning that mask in a bonfire or a safe burn dish. Burning things, I know you're a firebug. Samhain is a huge fire festival.
I
It
love it.
used to be marked by people putting the fires out in their home, lighting central fires in town, walking through it or putting your cows through it to purify them, and then taking that fire back to your house. So incorporating fire into your decorations or into your spell work or rituals can be, really empower them this time of year. So burning those masks is a good way too. But I like what you said, just as you're trick or treating with like your regular costume or whatever, just think of the idea that that's the old. And then when you take it off that night, you're shedding the old and getting ready for the witch's new year. I love that.
Kind of shedding your skin.
That is pretty cool.
I know I'm taking a Halloween costume, using it to like shed your skin, but that's how my mind works.
I love it. I think that's a really great way to celebrate. I think that's cool. I also like separating Halloween and Samhain.
I do too.
I mean, I know that it's similar in the whole, you're disguising yourself so the bad spirits can't find you. You're decorating your house to invite in the good spirits, carving pumpkins again to try to keep the bad fairies or the bad spirits from getting to you. But it's more fun to just, experience Halloween and then, do something a little private for yourself for Samhain. I think that's cool.
Well, and again, to my previous point, sometimes it's just a real life thing, You have kids, I have kids. We had to do the take your kids out and get the candy loot thing. So, I always looked at it as Halloween was the night I celebrated with my kids. We honored my grandmother. And then a day or two later was when I kind of got down and witchy with my group or my coven or, whatever.
Hmm.
So I kind of looked at Halloween as almost like my Samhain celebration with my kids, I guess. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like that. It's like a Samhain for kids. Oh, how fun.
Yeah,
That's a good way
yeah.
to look at it. So we have a whole month. This is the end of September when this episode comes out, and we have a whole witchy month of episodes planned. We're going to talk seances and Ouija boards. We're going to talk to a ghost hunter. We're going to talk about dark deities and ancestor work and all sorts of wonderful things. We have some excellent interviews coming up.
All things October.
This whole month is a wonderful time to really get your witch on. Now you can put out all your witchy stuff, even if you're in the broom closet, because you can just say it's seasonal. You can wear your more flowy sweaters that look like cloaks. And I love those wraps, those like sweater wraps that totally look like a cloak. My favorite.
And if you live in a place where being an outward witch is not a great experience, this is your time to shine. Wear your cloak, wear your witchy stuff. And when they say, "What are you for Halloween?" I'm a witch.
When my kids were in elementary school, I mean, I wasn't exactly in the broom closet, but we lived in a somewhat conservative area. Well, I happened to have a collection of witch hats. So every day in October, when I went to go pick them up, I wore a different witch hat to kid pickup. No one said a damn thing because it's the witchy season. It's October. You can get away with that, even in a slightly conservative area. That was
Yeah.
fun.
I mean, I kind of looked at it as my time to shine, man.
Yeah. If you're doing the incense and the candles and the simmer pots, I know you love a good simmer pot this time of
I
year.
do. I
And
do.
baking, if you're baking something, muffins and anything pumpkin spice, and you can put sigils in your baking, kitchen witchery, put a little magic in what you're cooking. But yeah, it's definitely a time of year when it feels like everything I do has a touch of magic to it.
Right. Now, I know we could talk about this for 800 years, but these people, they got to get to work and tend to their lives. So
Good point.
we need to move on. We are going to have a fabulous month. And again, shout out to everybody we met in Liverpool, New York. We love you guys
Thank you so
so
much for
much.
coming up to us. Even if you didn't bring a gift, we were so happy to see you.
Their love and words were gift beyond measure.
It was amazing. Thank you guys. We really, really appreciate it. Shell definitely needed it, and so did I. So thank
I
you.
did. But we got a great month planned,
We
and
do.
I'm really excited about our upcoming episodes, and I hope you guys are too.
Thank you guys so much for listening to Back on the Broomstick. Please tell a friend, give us some stars, like, subscribe, shoot us a review, send us an email.
Check out the socials.
We are Back on the Broomstick everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We also have a wonderful discussion group run by the wonderful witch Helen Jojo. That is Back on the Broomstick podcast discussion group on Facebook.
Love you, Helen Jojo.
Shell and I pop in there pretty often, but there's some freaking amazing witches in there. We have some good
hell yeah.
talent.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
yeah, you guys rock. So thank you to all of our benefactors. We really, really appreciate it. And we will see you next week. So be wise, be wicked, and as always,
Keep it witchy.